Yep, it was a marketing ploy. At least now we have the answer to that burning question, right? Although I suspect it's hardly the most shocking revelation in recent memory, as yes, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is indeed awfully, terribly, frightfully woke. And by that, of course, I mean intersectional to the gills. So, New York City looks like downtown Nairobi most of the time, with all of the relevant professions like firefighters and police being, well, you get the drift, and all of the characters in danger of being race and or gender swapped, e.g. the white ones, have indeed, about 80-90% of them, gotten race and or gender swapped. The only exceptions being Aunt May, who is now simply May, and Young. I've never liked young May for some reason, especially here as in the show that she is referred to as May, simply, but Uncle Ben is still Uncle Ben. Rubs me the wrong way. This is Tombstone, who has indeed undergone some rather drastic changes, I do admit, however, not as drastic as Dr. Kurt Connor, who has not only seen a drastic increase in his melanin count, but has also lost his Winky. Which, considering that his entire thing is that he's an amputee, seems downright mean, honestly. That's a rather cruel thing to do to him, if I'm to be honest. Do you think she'll come back as a male lizard? Now that could actually be funny. My arm is back. Wait, hold on. Unzips pants. What is this? Well, you're gonna have to do some research on it now, aren't you? And of course, the Osborns too are now black, because why not? It's the current year after all, and I want to talk a bit about that too, because holy hell. Okay, let's get into the actual show for a second rather than the obvious political agenda of the current year. What has happened to Western animation? I swear to Jesus, we used to be the best in the world on this. Go back and watch something like Treasure Planet, for example, or hell, even further back, The Jungle Book, and gape in awe at what used to be Western entertainment. And now, okay, this show, released in 2025, looks either directly comparable or in fact in certain elements inferior to the 2003 Spider-Man animated show. Hell, I would argue, in certain aspects, it looks worse than the 1993 show. How has Western entertainment, even in the 3D front, in fact especially on the 3D front, managed to stay at a complete stagnant or even indeed backwards drift for 30 years? Well, 20 in the case of 3D, but you get my drift here. Like, good God, what? How? Why? How has nobody tried to refine this? And in terms of character, of course, well, it's not even a competition. Okay. A lot of you may not know the 2003 version of Spider-Man because it didn't exactly meet with thunderous success by any stretch of the imagination, but allow me to introduce you to that show's Mary Jane Watson. She was something. She was quite the piece of work. A baddie, by all accounts. An excellent one. Whereas now, well, the current show doesn't even have a Mary Jane Watson at all. They've got sort of a stand-in, and it's Peter Parker's babysitter. I wish I was yanking your chain, but I am not. Who is an infinitely inferior version of MJ. And like, part of the reason why Spider-Man is as popular as he is because he's an everyday guy. That's a lot of his appeal. He's some common dude. He's not really particularly popular, particularly cool, particularly outstanding, particularly successful. I mean, he only has a job because he takes pictures of himself as Spider-Man, goddammit. And yet, through the power of radiation magic, radiation was so much cooler back then. It just gave you superpowers. You didn't die or anything, you just got some kind of crazy powers. Sometimes it was awesome, like Spider-Man. Other times, Well, other times it could be a bit more horrific, but details. And Mary Jane Watson was, of course, the girl next door, except she also happened to be a literal supermodel in later iterations, so that's a bonus. But she was kind of the prize to be obtained, the ultimate glory, a reason for fighting, for pulling on the suit and going out the door and fighting Rhino or the Lizard every day and so on, right? It was something within reach, and yet also seemingly so very, very far away. Not to mention, what guy hasn't had dreams of the hot red-headed girlfriend, you know? It was an obvious thing to do, and yet now we have Pearl, who is in every way a straight downgrade. I guess I could bring up a joke that it's kind of funny that she cucks Peter Parker right off the gate. In episode 1, she gets together with Tombstone instead of Peter, and yeah, I usually find the NTR elements rather amusing, but even I can't muster the interest in that joke anymore, because it's Spider-Man and Mary Jane. Well, I suppose that's one small mercy that it isn't Mary Jane Watson, so that's good, I do suppose. Oh, and he isn't bitten by a radioactive spider anymore. He's bitten by an interdimensional spider who comes through the same portal as the Venom symbiote? Incidentally, that spider just kind of leaves afterwards, and we don't see it again in the first 2 episodes, which seems like a rather large plot hole. What if it bites somebody else? What if it bites half the goddamn school? Although, I will say, one thing that I do appreciate about the Friendly Spider-Man show, or kind of appreciate, kind of don't, is the fact that it skips all of the silly learning the webs, learning the ropes, there you go, well, that's what I want to, phase of things. There's no scene where Peter Parker's like climbing the walls going like, whoa, I'm Spider-Man for 10-20 minutes. No, he pretty much figures out the powers right away, and you take a 2 months time skip where he is actually Spider-Man in his early homemade suit. Okay, appreciated. We all know his origin story, we don't really need to go through it. And the parts where he is Spider-Man is actually not bad. He does Spider-Man-y stuff, he solves small local crime. He isn't fighting any superheroes yet, he's catching a dude, peeping on a woman, photographing her security code, or catching a perpetrator who just stole a bunch of money and ran off, and small stuff like that. Good. That's kind of what I wanted to see from Spider-Man to begin with. But it also means that the story is incredibly rushed, and Spider-Man's secret identity is found out in episode 2. Why? Because he changed into his superhero costume right in front of a camera. Again, I appreciate the fact that we're skipping pretty straight to the superhero part here, but was that really the best introduction you could have there? Oh, Norman Osborn figures out he's Spider-Man. How? So through some plan, through some obsession, like I want to know who Spider-Man is? No, he changes in the stairwell, which also means that half the security staff knows who he is now. It's just dumb. It reduces the story, it reduces the character, not to mention, now there is video evidence of Peter Parker being Spider-Man. Somehow it feels like that could be a little bit of a problem, but just like the interdimensional spider, I presume it's probably just gonna poof and disappear at some point, so hey, that's nice, right? And indeed, the closest thing we get to a superhero fight is him fighting a, well, dude setting fire to buildings, so you know, I kind of appreciate the more down-to-earth take on it all. I kind of appreciate the school segments, seeing him try to square school life with superhero nonsense. That's sort of kind of enjoyable, and hey, at least they didn't push anything overtly woke in the school element, so that's nice, that's something. I would have expected them to start talking about intersectionality and structural oppression at some point there, but weirdly not. Quite nice. The animation quality though, like the general style of it lets it down. It's very clear that they were trying for a cartoonish inspired style, with occasionally some cuts trying to look like comic book frames. It's neat, but it is not a concession that is worth sacrificing the style of the entire show overall for. It's like, alright, you have a handful of cool transitions. Why does the entire show look like a cel-shaded video game cutscene? That's really not worth it for the fancy pants cutscenes, mate. By any stretch of the imagination, in fact. The voice acting is mostly okay, a little bit stiff here and there, but it gets the job done, and the characters being introduced rather quickly, it does get the story moving. It also leaves them somewhat shallow. Like, the only reason we know he likes Pearl is because he has a 5-minute expose going, yeah, she babysit me once, and that really turned me on for some reason. Also, his new Asian sidekick is apparently lesbian, just in case you were wondering if it was just race and gender changes. No, we have a sexuality one as well. You know, we gotta hit all the boxes, otherwise, why are we even here, frankly? I do think there might still be at least some hope for a halfway watchable show, as, again, if they take this and make it into a proper Spider-Man thing, and then Spider-Man figuring out that his boss is actually an asshole, and then figuring out some way to defeat him whilst, well, wearing his literal suit and so on, as a message to stay grounded, rooted, I guess? You could turn that into something interesting. I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be more of an anti-capitalist point, however, as his Asian sidekick already is like, wait, you're gonna go work for Norman Osborn? He's a terrible capitalist crook who did a terrible lot of awful things to get that rich. I see. Well, we'll see how on the nose that is, but so far, nothing particularly special. It's alright, it's not very good, it's not very bad either. And if you're turned off by woke nonsense, well, then you can definitely safely give it a miss, as it is, as I mentioned initially, very, very intersectional, and in terms of both style and characters, deeply inferior to a show from 20 plus years ago. So, do with that what you will. But I've already promised chat that I will watch the damn thing, so I shall. Until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.